versus
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, stuff like this, iconic cards,
Michael
things that
Jordan.
are hard to come by, you know.
Guys, welcome. Thank you for jumping in on another episode of The Business of Ball Cards. And I'm here with Issac from KIP'S Cards. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. We actually have somebody that's a little bit younger. And so I'm really interested in getting his perspective on building a baseball sports card business. So I'll go ahead and go to you. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your collecting days, and about your dealer days, I guess, and how you got into it.
Well, appreciate you having me. I really like the series so far. I
Absolutely.
think you've done a great job with it. And kind of my turnover into sports
Thank you.
cards was my uncle had a binder, and it was all jersey cards. And this was probably 2007 or 2008. So I'm a big Steelers guy. So he had like some Troy Polamalu stuff, some Big Ben stuff. And I was young, so jersey cards then in 2007, 2008, that was everything. You know, if you could get a relic of
Yes.
a Game 1 jersey or a, Max Hughes jersey, that was, you did it. There you go. You got your piece of your guy. And it kind of started there and opening packs and keeping some things for myself. And then as a teenager, I kind of was more into like school, sports, girls, that kind of thing before I got into cards. About 19, 20 years old, that's when I started getting like seriously into the jerseys and stuff like that. Like, you know what, why don't we look into some sports cards? So I've always collected one guy, and that's since his days at Pitt, and that's Kenny Pickett. So I've got the coolest Kenny Pickett stuff in the world. It's not at a premium anymore, so I've got a ton of Kenny. So I love collecting Kenny. If you ever come across that stuff, or anybody watching this that you want to sell, I'm the guy that buys Kenny Pickett, I guess. But and then business-wise, it's just a faith-based family business that we do. My wife does sourdough, and she packs orders in the morning with me from eBay, and we kind of travel a little bit. I try to stay like mostly in Ohio because I've got 3 little ones, so I don't get too far away from them, and we just grind sports cards. Everything from 50 cents to 5,000 doesn't make a difference price-wise for us. So it's just a little bit.
It's really cool. I do have to say that so far you do have the best background. You have the best man cave looking situation that we've had so far. Yeah, it's pretty nice
Appreciate
pieces
that.
on the wall there. So I know a little bit about you. Know you a little bit, not super well, but I've seen some posts you've made where you've recommended books, or you've said something about this book was inspirational and that sort of thing. Can you kind of tell us maybe a couple of books, 2 or 3, 4, that you've really liked, and maybe how they spoke to you and how they've kind of helped you maybe in your mindset, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one book that I recommend to everyone that I have no experience with is the Bible. So I need to dive into it on my own terms. Just from scripture alone, from things like online and then other guys that are devoted, I've learned a lot through that. But personal experience, things I've actually read that helped me a ton. Rich Dad Poor Dad was huge, just for perspective purposes. Changing the way you look at things, paying attention to the things that matter, and don't waste time with, too much emotion on things. James Clear with Atomic Habits was great. Kind of give you an idea how to set your day and pace, or whatever it is. If you want to wake up at 2 p.m. and play video games and survive, and if that life works for you, set it up with these habits. And he brought a hilarity aspect to it as well, because he is a comedian, or a former comedian now. So, and then I think it's probably 80 pages or less. It's called As a Man Thinketh. It's a great little read, and it dives into a mindset that Bruce Lee used to repeat a lot, that I kind of keep on tabs in here. I've got a phone. This phone is strictly for like eBay and whatnot and that kind of thing. So all those little quotes come across, and it's don't make fun of yourself or say bad things about yourself, because your brain is not built to hear that information and take it as a joke, or just to throw it away. It's literally eating that. Like, I'm not good at such a thing. Your brain believes that. So those books have really helped build a positive structure for me to build a business off of. So
you mentioned it in the Bible. I know Scripture says, a good name is to be desired far above rubies and riches and gold and all those sort of things. And that's a quote that I try to keep in my head and kind of focus on. I also agree with you about Rich Dad Poor Dad. I have a number of books too. A couple of that you referenced right there, I'm not real familiar with, and there's a few books that maybe in one of these episodes I'm going to kind of go down that path, just me recommending some books and how they changed me. But I don't know how much you know about me, but absolutely, I was in poverty. And I've been doing this for quite some time, but I actually tried to do a card shop when I was about 25 years old, 26 years old. Tried to do it with credit card debt. It failed miserably. I won't go into all of those details, but it was books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and books like that that I devoured, and then like kind of more along that series too. And I started devouring all kinds of business books, all kinds of marketing books at the local library because I couldn't afford to buy them, to be
Yeah.
completely honest.
Yeah.
And but books like that really changed how I think about money. And I think that's one of the things, if you're going into business, you kind of have to think about money a little bit differently. And you kind of got to be pretty disciplined with how you
For
kind of
sure.
look at money and use your money. So we talked about books. You've got some inspiration, got some maybe direction and guidance from some books. But is there anybody that you go to for advice or guidance? Has there been anybody in the hobby? Because I know you mentioned to me that you're only 28. And so, has there been anybody that you've kind of really went to uh, for guidance, for direction in the
Yeah.
hobby?
I think it's a really good question because that depends on where you're at in your process. I think so many young men are terrified of advice, so we kind of all hide from mentors or direction because it can kind of be difficult to eat the salad, as I say. Hey, you could do this better, this better, this better. It's
Mm-hmm,
kind of hard to deal with. So my first
mm-hmm.
reach is always prayer. I always go straight to Jesus. Like just direct me where I'm supposed to be. If it's not what I want to be doing, at least I know it's where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be doing the things the way I am. And then on a more, you know, uh, concise level to your question, Thomas is somebody I pass a lot of things off, and that's Gemini Sports Cards. If you decide to throw up a little bubble, Thomas is somebody I reference a lot of times and things I do or deals. Somebody's like, "Hey, you know somebody that would buy this X card and it's too big for me?" I'm like, well, I know the Tom Brady of sports cards, and that's Tom. So Tom's been an
Mm-hmm.
excellent business mind to bounce things off of, but even better as a devoted faith leader. I think is kind of a way to say it. Like Tom has his own personal relationship with Jesus, so bouncing things off him about that and
Yes.
those things are so important to me and what I do in business. Just being official and making sure I'm following the status quo as far as what Jesus would want. And then my uncle Terry
Yes.
is the other person I do a ton of business with. We do more real estate together and more. He's somebody that's like, hey, what is it that you're looking at? You need to do this or use this amount of money to make something happen with that. He's somebody I bounce a lot of things off of too. So those obviously Jesus come first, and then my uncle Terry and Thomas, they're just two great people to see things from two different perspectives with. So
Yes. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Thomas Fisher has been somebody I've known for probably 20 years. And, it is, I haven't really went to Thomas. We're kind of in two different areas. I focus mostly on wax, sealed product and stuff like that.
yeah,
But Thomas has been a good role model in the hobby, in the fact that he went from not very much to, successful for sure. And also, you mentioned his faith. His faith has been very significant, and even outside of cards. Uh, Brief, quick story: because he went to a church that the lead guy from 21 Pilots goes to. He really hooked me up about 10, 12 years ago by allowing my daughter to meet Tyler Joseph
oh,
from
cool,
21 Pilots. So
nice.
yeah, so it was very cool, and it actually she got a phone call maybe 9 months before that from Tyler. So Tom, is a friend of mine. I do not get to speak to Tom as much as I'd like. I mean, I'm sure he's busy doing things, but yeah, Tom's been there, and just a couple of weeks back, I interviewed Bart and Tony Howe, and in the local hobby, if you go back 25 years ago in Central Ohio, it was Bart and Tony Howe, and it was Thomas Fisher, and those were the big dogs, and we all kind of looked up to them and stuff. So yeah, I know exactly what you're saying about about Thomas. So kind of reversing back here on a question, you were talking about how you got in this, and I kind of skipped over this. One of the things is you've only been dealing for what, about 3 or 4 years now?
Hmm.
So did you find it difficult to kind of get into cards as there was a downturn from the COVID kind of explosion? Because a lot of people, currently there's some buzz going around, some comments Gary Vee has had about we're looking like we might be heading kind of back in that direction. He referred to it as the winter is coming. So have you found it difficult without that head start of COVID to just kind of get established?
Yeah. So the COVID boom to me was just what the market was when I came in. So Victor kind of used a good way to look at things. He didn't know they don't know anything else. The Spurs are so young; they don't know anything else. So to them, it's not impossible to win a title this young or whatever, you know. And my in my eyes, the
Yeah.
football card market's always been this big, you know. So
Yes.
when I came in as a breaker, and I would like whatever I could buy back to keep for. I always tried to do it that way. So I'm like, okay, if I can, you know, buy back this Trevor Lawrence auto, nice, you know, and maybe I can sell it on eBay and make some money. And slowly it turned into um, like, holy crap, this Kobe Bryant auto was $80 in 2015. Now it's 2 grand. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm on the wrong side of this now. You know, maybe it's already done its boom. To watch it grow from when I got into it to now, holy smokes, you know, there's
Yeah.
millions of $1,000 cards, you know, like there's you know, hundreds of thousands of $100,000 cards, and you just wouldn't expect cardboard stock with pictures of guys doing cool stuff on them were going to ever be there, you know, like it would have never
Yeah.
crossed my mind, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, this is what I would be doing full time. So but yeah, that's kind of the idea with the COVID market. I didn't know anything else, and then looking back now, I'm like, wow, it's changed a lot. So
Yeah, for sure. So, what would you say is your main focus of buying and selling? Like, where are you buying and selling, and what kind of things are you looking to pick up?
yeah, so I actually have a couple things here I was going to show and picture, but I don't know if it'll get a real good picture of it or not. So, but I'll kind of talk while I do it. I buy everything. So, if we had a little bit of an array, I could show you. I mean, I've got probably 30 plus 5 row boxes over here of 50-cent cards. So that's just stuff that I go through deals, and I'm like, hey, this thing's probably sell for 50 cents, you know. And then also stuff like
Yeah.
this, always, you know, always the downtowns and kabooms and all the shiny stuff, they're just not as easy to turn and burn anymore. You know, there's guys that play the percentage game, and they kind of tear your head off, and you get the whole idea there. But like Metal Universe,
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, stuff like this, iconic cards,
Michael
things that
Jordan.
are hard to come by, you know, if you can have stuff like
No.
this LeBron James, stuff like that out of five, those are what
Oh,
we're all
yeah.
after. So I make it a little easier on myself to buy stuff like that by also buying everything else that somebody else might. Hey, everywhere I go, they won't take this stuff. You know, can you value it at something for me? Yeah, sure. You know, I'll take it on and I'll do the work that nobody else wants to do. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, you're trying to buy when people are selling. Like
yeah,
you're trying to buy right, and you'll take about anything if feel like you can pick it up at the right price.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, to touch on that just a little further, you know, you can't win on any deal you do by selling it for more. You have to buy it right. So just like you kind of hit it on the head there, you know, um, buying the right pieces that you can have in a showcase, like the LeBron, like the Michael Jordan and stuff. Being realistic and saying, you know, most people can't afford to spend $200 to $1,000 on a card. Let's have some $10 Cooper flags out there. Let's have some stuff like that too. You know, a lot of people skip over that side of the
Yeah.
grind nowadays, I feel like. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, you're definitely right. So I mentioned earlier that I had a shop 25, 26, and my shop failed. I mean, it literally failed. It wasn't successful. I knew not a thing about marketing, anything like that. But I know that you had a shop and made a decision to kind of let that shop go. Can you kind of explain, your thoughts on, having a shop, how you ended up stepping away from that, and just how you feel about it overall?
Yeah. So One, I know exactly how you feel hopping into, opening a business at that age. The first thing you think of is all the negative possibilities, and your mind doesn't really stretch to what could I be learning and what else could I be putting into things. And uh, opening a hobby shop was the greatest thing I ever did in my life. So it pushed me to new places. It was such a strange atmosphere. It was so much change in my life that I was not anticipating. I met so many cool and exciting people. I live life with no regrets, but if there is one thing I could do, I would just keep the little hole in the wall that I had in the mall instead of expanding into the big 3,000 square foot building. Uh, it cash flowed or cash flew, however you want to say it, better. And I got to keep a few guys employed and they could do things. And then obviously, if you get into Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad, you also kind of get into a little Dave Ramsey, and I may have dabbled into some of the scary money of his thinking and stuff. So at the time, I was like, I can do everything I'm doing at the same pace by myself if I get rid of the shop. So that was kind of the idea,
Yeah.
you know. I can run all the whatnot. I've still got three, 4 rows right here full of eBay inventory. I can still do all this from home and spend time with the kids. So logically, I could have kept the business as far as the storefront and everything would have went well. And then home wise, dad side of me, I said, hey, this is probably my best bet, is to just be home. Now, down in the future, hopefully, one of the things that is bestowed upon me is a new shop. I would love to get back into the shop atmosphere. I miss the people. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. I totally sympathize, understand. I know Kirk Cameron may be a guy that you've heard of or whatever, but I know that there was a book he read, and I think it's called The Way of the Samurai. And that book is actually what led him to Jesus. But it really had an interesting part where this master is training this young apprentice guy, and he's asking him to do things, kind of think like Karate Kid, like a whole like wipe on, wipe off, wax off, that whole thing. And he like looks at him and he's like, why am I doing all this? And he's like, there's no not learning. Like everything you're doing is a stepping stone. It's a lesson to learn. And I know with me, I literally filed bankruptcy because of this business that failed. But that filing bankruptcy lit a fire in me to understand how business works and to like devour books and
yeah,
stuff like that and redo the whole thing the right way. And also, I mean, I guess it was just that idea that I couldn't live on credit anymore. I had to live within my means, be disciplined enough to do that. So that literally put me in a good position to be kind of mostly debt free and that sort of thing. And I just didn't use credit to fund, a lot of things. So,
yeah.
but I talked to Don about this show that you guys did, and he kind of corrected me because I was like, maybe I was the first guy to jump on as a sponsor, but I wasn't. I was about second. But can you tell me a little bit about the show you're doing with Don Jones in October?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little long-winded. So I love creating shows. I know you probably have the same enjoyment when you set up the shows. So it is so much fun to see, your coordination come to life and everybody to be a part of something you created. I mean, I don't care what it is, card shows, whatever. If you have people show up, it feels good. So Don is the way I met Thomas, but also Don and I have done a ton of business. So like the first person I think of when I think of shows, Zanesville, Newark area, I'm calling Don. We went and checked out a building, and he's that same way with the Kiyosaki situation. He's like, why are we selling 50, 60 tables? Why don't we sell 100? Oh, okay, you're right. Let's do it. So that's something I like
Yeah.
about Don is his thought process. So Don and I really click. Um, so we're gonna do 100 tables plus at that show. I think we've already got like 50 plus sold. I think we almost have 60 sold now. Very little promo. You guys all kind of hopped in. Now we were super specific in the way we were like, okay, we want our sponsors to be really reputable names because we don't want anybody involved in the show that somebody go back and forth about, especially as a sponsor. So we've got a few invites out, but the main row of supporting cast that we wanted is already full for our sponsors. So we'll have 100 tables there. I'll try to have a nice little buying area set up there, and then something else Don and I always try to do at our shows is food. Don's really good about having the trucks come and stuff, so there will be food there. 100 plus tables, tons of guys buying. I'll make sure there's some repackers in the room too, so they can kind of do their spending and all that. But yeah, it'll be a good time. So.
Yeah. So, do you have any final thoughts or anything you really want to convey? Or I definitely
No.
shout out, any of your social media, anything like that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I think the Instagram is Kips Cards One, and they all kind of have a little bit of different things. For some reason, I didn't just make them all Kips Cards, but I think Facebook is Kips Cards Plus. If you want to follow us on there, that's where we put like the majority of our content updates, and then obviously we try to get a ton of local stuff too, like Colt Emerson being from our area, some Ohio State guys. We got a card up right now for sale on there, Chris Henry Jr. auto. So we try to do a ton of that kind of stuff on there. And then Instagram is more of the prototypical 30 and under. Let me post pictures of the shiny stuff, that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun too. And then our TikTok is, I think, Kips Cards, just regular Kips Cards. And there's a little bit more in-depth part of what Kips Cards is as far as a business and like me at home as a dad too. So me and my wife are building a garden, and we'll end up posting that on TikTok. So you get to
Well,
kind
that's
of see a
cool.
little more intrapersonal setup of how we're doing things too. So, but yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
then our eBay is Kips Cards, and then KCS Cheap. We do a cheaper version for the PWE sales. So yeah, there's always stuff for sale, guys. If anybody's ever looking for anything, and reach out to us. So
So again, I really appreciate you being on here. Really enjoyed talking to you, Isaac, and we'll get this edited and dropped out there.
all right, perfect. Thanks, Rob. Take it easy, man.